Todd Haberkorn, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
What is it about Star Trek that you love? Are you a fan or just a Klingon?
Well, I'm certainly a fan. I actually have the Enterprise tattooed on my arm. It was kind of something that it's part of a Star Trek Star Wars tattoo that I got kind of in celebration for the culmination of everything that we've done with Star Trek Continues. I felt like it was a nice little cap to it all that will have an even better cap when we premiere the last couple of episodes here. But I've definitely been a fan of the legacy since I was a kid, and was really excited to join the club and not only work on Star Trek Continues, but then actually work on one of the films, the last Star Trek movie that was in theaters. That was cool. And it's been great.
I had no idea you were on the last Star Trek film. Tell me about that. What was your experience there?
Well, I did a lot of voice work for it. I'm actually Kevin the alien. I'm the little alien that has the little Star Trek tunic on at the end. So that planet where at the beginning where all the creatures seem really big and imposing, but they're the little guys. I'm a lot of those guys, and then I'm one of the little creatures that climbs onto Kirk and makes it back to the Enterprise, and they can't catch him. And I was that character to the end. And then also I was a lot of the red shirt deaths, and then I was some other aliens, and I did a lot of the fighting in the film. And so it was like a big grab bag of voice stuff all day for the movie.
Is there a particular Star Trek that you resonate with? I mean, I'm a big fan of the original series, TOS, and TNG I like as well. But the others, I can take them or leave them.
I like bits and pieces of all the different iterations of it. I'm a really big fan of particularly Spock in the films, because I felt like in the films he hit a really nice stride in terms of his balance with the human side and the Vulcan side, and that's what I really gravitated towards long before STC came along.
What was your favorite Star Trek movie? Mine is Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. It's the best for me.
Oh, right on. There's so many good things. I did enjoy Wrath of Khan. I know that everyone loves that movie, but I particularly like it because I feel like the director got a really nice performance out of Shatner, and it was cool to learn the story about how we got that performance out of him. And so I like those little hidden gems. But that was a great film. And they're all I really like all of them. So it just depends on the day.
I could throw number 6 away. Not for me.
I remember seeing that one in theaters, so that holds a special place.
Have you ever met or had any interaction with Leonard Nimoy?
Right before he got really, really ill, I was actually in the works of working out, going to his home and chatting with him and meeting him. But when he started to get really, really ill, I pulled the plug on that because I just didn't want to. At the time, I didn't know what exactly was happening in terms of how bad it was, and I just didn't want to be a bother. So it was just about to happen, and then and then of course everyone knows what happened then. But it was close. But other than that, no.
Well, let me ask you this. Is it your intention to do an impression of Nimoy's portrayal of Spock, or are you doing your own interpretation of the character in your own style?
I'm trying to do my own interpretation, but also keeping the structure with which he created, because I don't think it would be interesting for the audience or for me to just do an impression. Because then if I did an impression, it's a different muscle. I'd have to work the mimicking muscle, which it can be fun at first, but then it just kind of, for me, it would be a dull approach. And so I try to really create my own version eventually, especially once we get into the later episodes, of how I feel it would proceed leading up to the first film.
Do you identify with the character? Do you find yourself to be logical in any way like Spock, or is this simply a portrayal, an act?
Oh, I struggle with it all the time. I mean, I come from half my family's Asian, and so they're very logical and very by the book and academic, and then the other half is kind of the opposite of that. And so trying to strike a balance between both those worlds my whole life is tricky and something that I struggle with or I guess dance with on a regular basis.
Do you think the Spock character was modeled off an Asian person or that persuasion in any way?
Oh, sure, totally. The bowl haircut. Every Asian kid I knew, and myself too, we had to all get the bowl haircut. So it's just a part of it. And we also, from my family's culture, is very much like emotions are a weakness. And so that was something else that I feel is that is echoed in that and a lot of what Spock does.
It's such a great series, this Star Trek Continues. How did you get in touch with Vic Magnan? I know he directed The Crossing, which was on Farragut, another great fan fiction series. Was that your introduction to Vic?
Well, Vic and I have been longtime buds for many years, and so I've known him for over 10 years. And he approached me about it and mentioned that he was going to be working on this project. And I knew it was going to be something exciting because I know how hard he works in his professional life and how hard he tries to be a perfectionist. So I didn't know exactly how it was going to turn out, but I knew whatever he did, it was going to be good and that I needed to be involved with it. So I let him know, and he had me aboard, and the rest is fan production history.
Are you a fan of every episode? I mean, I know that some are better than others. That's just always going to be that way. What's your favorite episode of Star Trek Continues?
My favorite, that's a tough one. Yeah. You know, I really like Come Not Between the Dragons because of Greg Dykstra and his involvement in the process leading up to that. I really like Greg, and I think he's a very intelligent man and a very kind-hearted man, and that story was very personal for him, and the fact that he designed the creature and crafted the episode was really special, and to be able to bring that to life was a lot of fun.
For those of us who don't know who this is, like myself, who are you referring to?
Greg Dykstra is one of two sculptors at Pixar, and he's been there for many, many years, and he designed the characters such as Jack Skellington. He designed, basically all those characters. He designed all the Incredibles, The Good Dinosaur, basically any Pixar movie that you love, he created those characters. And so he's a really smart guy. In his spare time, he's like a paleontologist. So it's pretty amazing.
What is it about Star Trek Continues? It seems to attract the best of the best. None of the other fan fiction films that I've seen have had so many prominent people involved.
Well, I really think it comes down to Vic and his passion for it and his ability to get people on board with the things that he's passionate about, because I think that you can see it when you talk to him. You see when he's talking to you, you can just see the little kid in him, and so it's infectious. And then when you see that, you want to get involved, and then before you blink, and an episode's done.
No kidding, kid-like. That guy's in his 50s.
Yeah,
he looks like he's playing Kirk, who's in his 30s. He looks great for his age.
Oh yeah, he just had a birthday actually. He's doing very well for where he's at in life.
Do you consider Star Trek Continues to be canonical?
Well, I feel like when we got the stamp of approval from Rod about that very topic, and he said to the best of his ability that he thinks his dad would approve of it, I have to defer to that, and I'm like, okay, if the prince says it, then I'll agree. So I think that the episodes are crafted and written with the best of intentions in mind, and also to honor Star Trek as the beast that it is. And it's a great honor to even be in that same possibility of being canon. So I think it is. But that's really, I guess it's just up to each individual fan.
What do you think of the new movies? I know you're in the last one, so maybe you have a certain opinion of it that may be biased. But do you feel that they stand up? Do you feel that they're Star Trek?
I feel like they're for a different era. They're for a different audience. I think that they're, I feel like they're not really the same spirit, in the sense that I could swap out any one of those characters with anyone else and it'd be any kind of and it's just another sci-fi movie. But I do know that they're trying to change. The reason they created those movies, I feel, is because they're trying to appeal to what they think is a modern audience, etc. And so there are a lot of micro decisions that get made to bring it to that point, and I don't know all of them, but to me, it is not quite the same. But they look great. They're beautifully shot, and the audio and the special effects are wonderful, but the heart of it is not as complex as older Trek.
You've touched on the point here, is that Star Trek Continues has that. It has that feel. The sentimentality, the thought.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I mean, that's, Vic can recite these, the original episodes front to back. So he definitely has a really attuned view of how that should go. And so we just defer to his judgment, and he knows where to go.
Can you not recite the episodes front to back? You're not as big a fan as Vic?
I don't think anybody is. I don't think Gene could have been. And so he's the master.
But you do watch them. You have seen them all, right?
Totally, yeah.
What's your favorite episode, Mr. Spock?
Oh, man. I do like a piece of the action. I think that's...
Ahita.
Oh, man. Yeah. Oh, man, that's tough. That's tough. There's too many. That's tough. Tough.
There's no way you like Piece of the Action. That's considered to be one of the worst. Season 3, if I recall. So.
Oh, I like it. I like how cheesy and
really. I have a guilty
is,
pleasure myself. Spectre of the Gun, which I think is one of the great ones. Nobody respects it at all.
See, everybody has their poison. So yeah.
You know what it is? It's that point where Spock says the bullets are not real. It's all in your mind, and it becomes this sort of Matrix moment. Spock had a tendency to steal the show. Do you get those lines in this series? Are you as impactful as Nimoy was in the first one to Star Trek Continues?
I think that depends on how Vic's feeling when he's editing the script on that day. So I think that I do get good moments. And there are a couple times when I got to fight for him a little bit. But I think that overall he wants what's best for that particular episode.
So you've had some involvement with Vic and his directorial work and his writing style and that. You were also on an episode of Farragut in The Crossing, which Vic also directed. How was it working on the two different shows, and what was your experience on working with Farragut as opposed to Star Trek Continues? What are they doing differently?
Well, Farragut, Star Trek Continues comes from, Farragut, they both come from a place of love and passion for Trek. I think with Farragut, it's really more of a passion project in a different way than Star Trek Continues, whereas just Star Trek Continues, it's a passion project, but it involves people that are fluent in many facets of production and have a lot of industry experience that have come together to do it, whereas with Farragut, it's a passion project as well, but the levels of experience in an industry setting are a little different. And so you get a little bit of a different feel. When Vic is directing on a series that is not his, that's a little bit different. So it's little tweaks here and there, but the passion is the same for both series from the creators, and so that's nice to see. You
have a lot of credits to your name. I mean, I looked at your Wikipedia page. It's an impressive list. Oh, thank you. I try to stay busy, sometimes 7 days a week, so it just depends. Myself included, 7 days a week. That's my motto. If you're not working, you're losing. You got to hustle if you want to make it, You got to hustle. That's right. That's why I'm Russell the Hustle. So, compared to all the other stuff you've done, and I just asked you about Farragut in this comparison, but where would you rank Star Trek Continues in your repertoire? Is it the best thing you've ever done? Is it the best work you've done? Where do you place it?
Oh, that's a good question. I think definitely early on, it definitely is the most challenging work in the sense that, you've got a lot of hours of makeup to contend with. You've got 3-hour time zone change that doesn't sound like much, but when you're 15 hours on set every day, and I'm usually the first one on set, just from a production logistics standpoint, it was challenging and it felt good to accomplish that. But also getting to work with, sci-fi icons and working with people whose drive comes from a place of just a love for the property was really nice. And it's a different motivator than when you're working on a film where, you have no connection to it other than what you create on set. It's a different vibe. So in that sense, yeah, it feels good to have accomplished that for sure. And I would say that it definitely ranks high.
But you're an actor. Are you there because of your love of Star Trek, or are you there because you're just good at what you do?
Well, I hope it's a combo of the two. I did have to audition for Spock, and also I like the challenge, and I think that Vic does shoot me straight, and so if he didn't like something I was doing, he's a pretty tough critic. He would let me know, and he's always been very complimentary about my involvement with the show, and so hopefully that's a good litmus test. And I'm always trying to improve and better my portrayal of Spock every episode, and so hopefully people will really like what's coming out as we bring it to an end.
Spock's an interesting character, and we'll talk about the end of Star Trek Continues. The range of Spock is far narrower than, say, a human character. He has only so many emotions and that lack thereof. Is that easier as an actor? Is it more difficult? How do you prepare? Is it a method thing?
It's more difficult because you have to limit the amount of tools that you have, and then you have to transpose them into different flavors. So Spock does have all those emotions, but they are through a tunnel that is not as forgiving as a human, and so as a normal human character that you would come across, I find it's a much more measured, but also still just as emotional. Just it's tricky to know when certain emotions come out and when those get explored, and so that's always the tricky balance, is knowing how much to push, how much to pull back. How much do you load into this response or that action? So that it's always it's an extra layer for sure.
The thing about Spock is we all know that there's so much in there. When he says something, it's with great thought. If you just delivered the lines hollowly, you wouldn't necessarily convey that depth of character.
I agree. I think that it's not that Spock is emotionless, it's that he's very measured and thoughtful.
How long are these tapings? A couple of days, 3 days, a week?
Each episode takes about 10 days. And so we're there on set, double-digit hours, and plowing away, trying to get as many pages done as we can while still maintaining quality. And these guys have pulled it off every time, and I can't wait to see what we do next.
Well, you already know what you're doing next. I don't know what you're doing next. Vic knows, you know, and I know that you know that I know that you know that Vic knows. What should we expect as fans for these final 2 episodes? As I understand it, it's a 2-part finale.
Yeah, it brings it right up to the motion picture.
There's going to be a month or so separated between the release of the 2 episodes. What can you reveal in this conversation about what we should expect?
Well, I think there's definitely going to be the stakes are going to be very high. You're going to see things that you never saw in the original series, and it's going to create ripples in the lives of these characters that everyone knows and loves, and it really does answer the question of what caused everyone to go off on their separate ways and then come together for the motion picture. And I'm excited to see what people think, and hopefully it's something that people will respect and find that it was just the perfect little ending to Star Trek Continues. So we'll see.
In my interview with Vic Magnan, in the comments, I can't tell you the number of people who have mentioned it. Many, many, many. That Netflix should pick up Star Trek Continues and put it on their network. What do you think?
Well, I would love that. I certainly would love to add it to the things.
Don't you understand? Like there's this new one coming out, Star Trek Discovery, right? And people don't have the same passion. I'm talking about fans, real Trekkers, real Trekkies. They don't have the passion for that as they do for this.
Well, and it's astonishing, and it's such a good feeling. I would love to add this to the list of things I do for a living, and if that is something that can happen, I mean, anything's possible. Literally anything is possible. So if that's something that's on the table and does come to fruition, I'm there. Absolutely. So we'll see what happens. Vic certainly he plays sometimes with his cards very close to his chest. So we'll see what he can cook up.
What is being done with the sets? A lot of people ask this. I think people want to get, maybe they want a piece of it or something, or maybe it's for sale on eBay. Do you know anything about it?
That's above my pay grade. I've heard a rumor about what's going to happen with them, and there's a couple of ideas I've told Vic about, but until he makes a decision on that, I can't say. But there's definitely a couple of options.
Okay, all I need to know is, can you get a little piece for me? Just cut it out, whatever you need to do. Mail it to Russell Scott.
I don't see why that would be a problem. I know my way around that set.
Okay. I'll send you the check. Email
there
transfer.
We go.
Whatever works for you. One last thing. Still Threads the Shadow. Collectively, that's what's considered to be the best episode of the series so far?
It's so difficult because I feel like they just keep getting better and better. So I really like the one where I loved it when Vic, ran into the alternate older version of himself. I love that episode. I love the one
episode 8.
Episode 8, yeah, and I love the Civil War episode, and I don't know. There's so many. They're the children. They're all the kids. I love all the kids. So it's hard.
My favorite is episode 9. What Ships Are For. It had a guest performance by John Delancey. I don't know if you worked with them or if you
yeah, totally
had any lines with them. Did you?
Yeah. Absolutely. Uh-huh.
Was he good to work with?
He was great to work with. He's a true professional and such a classic. You could feel the classic training in him, and he was very kind, and we actually screened the episode at his home, and he was very gracious and has a lovely home, and Robert Picardo made food for everyone that night, so it was amazing.
Who's that? Is that a chef of some sort?
He's the holographic doctor from Voyager.
Oh, that guy. Okay, really? And he can cook. Wow, a doctor.
Oh my God, he made these amazing brick oven pizzas from scratch, everything from scratch, and it was awesome.
God, he was good, John Delancey. It surprised me because I thought, okay, it's been 20 plus years since Star Trek: The Next Generation. He can phone this in.
And yeah,
it's just a guest performance. It doesn't really matter.
And he totally did the opposite.
He totally nails it. Like
yeah.
he gives it everything. I don't think I've ever seen him necessarily act that well. It was great.
Yeah, he was really nice.
To see the interaction between him and Vic, it blew my mind, honestly, because like I said, he could have phoned it in.
Well, thank you for checking it out. He really did a great job, and it was really nice to see.
Mr. Spock, Todd Haberkorn, we will resume this conversation another time.
That sounds good to me. Take care, Russell. Bye.